Hello. Um, Yesterday there was a storm or a tornado close by, so we lost power and for a little bit and internet for most of the day. So um, I didn't do much yesterday. It was a good day overall. I made progress in my goals. Um, I watched the ending of Dexter, so I thought that was really good. Much better than the first ending. And I was a little unsatisfied with sort of the abrupt ending. Um, it I mean I want more because I like the show, but just where they put off Batista didn't see Dexter. You don't really get the resolution of his crimes or anything, and then the boy just ditches. So it was better than him being a lumberjack, um, but still unsatisfying, I guess. But that was good to have something. There was cable, but no internet. Um, so I have been torn about what I want to talk about. I think I'll talk about Grandma and Papa Eden. Um, this is hard for me because Grandma Eden is probably the most influential person in my life, far more in a positive way, far more than either of my parents. Um, and in fact, took me in when neither of my parents would. Um, I just can't praise her enough. And believe it or not, it gets even better than that. So, we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the one positive role model in my childhood. And it's incredibly painful for me. So, I will try to get through without breaking down. Um, we have to start in the beginning before I was born. I don't know much about this time, but so we're going to fast forward. My mother was adopted by Grandma and Papa Eden. She was given up at birth, and we'll come back to that probably when we talk about our mom, but maybe today, I'm not sure. We'll see how the story goes. So, um, my mother was adopted. I don't know exactly the timetable, but my grandma and Grandpa Eden, they had three other kids. They had my Aunt Linda, my Uncle Chip, and my Uncle Clay. Um, I We were never very close with Uncle Chip and his family. Uncle Clay, what I would call our branches. That's my mom's branch, my aunt's branch, my uncle's branches. We were close with Chip's branch a little bit, and then with my aunt's branch, we were very close. Um, and I'll talk about this more when I talk about my cousins, but I was the first grandkid. Um, and then every year later, there was one more. for a very, very long time. Um, so being first, probably, no, I was the first kid in the branch, the first grandkid, the first cousin. So this, oh, I was always the oldest for the most part, of the kids. So maybe this led to me uh, being catered to a little bit more. I'm not sure. Um, my Grandma Eden was not born blind, but her vision um, deteriorated over life, and she could never see very well. But when I was younger, she could, she said she could identify people by the shape of their shadows, um, or the way they look, the shadowy way they look, or their silhouette. Um, but toward the end of her life, I I don't know exactly how much she could see. Um, she did use a reader. This is essentially a giant electronic magnifying glass. You put something under it and it blows it up on a screen in front of her so um, she could see it. Um, there were um, I don't know how they're related, so family or friends that would occasionally would come over, who were completely blind, who had like a seeing eye dog. Um, of course, she could never drive, um, but that doesn't mean she didn't know where she was going. She would memorize streets. Would if you ever drove for her, she'd want you to tell you the street you were crossing, the lights you were driving through, so she could give you directions to go places that she knew. She still did all the normal things, cook, clean, and my God, my Papa Eden needed someone like that. Um, you would just think he was helpless on his own. Now he was always a big man, so I guess she fed him well. Um, he loved all different types of hot sauce. I can't stand the stuff, but he was always putting it on everything. Um, they always lived in the same house. As I mentioned before, it was within a couple miles of my grandparents on my dad's side. Um, they had now my Papa Eden, he ran a roofing business for the whole time that I knew him, that I was alive. So, um, and he actually gave me what could be considered my first job when I was, I want to say 16 or something. Um, and man, if you ain't ever done it, first of all, it's scary. I don't like heights. Second, you got to wear pants because it's summer in Texas on roofs. So sometimes things would just be melting up there. Um, it was funny because, he was getting older by the time I was 16, so he'd send me up. Of course, he's too big, really. You don't want him to go up there anyway. But he'd send me up on the roof to find the leaks with his old friend, Mr. Lindy. Um, and Lindy and his wife, I can't remember her name. She was a good woman. They lived on a street behind. I remember she used to put phone books. She was short, so she used to put phone books under her butt so she could drive, and she wouldn't drive on the freeways. Dudley, that was her name. Um, Mr. Lindy was part Indian or Indian. He was a hunchback. He told me he used to work on the railroads, and he was a good man too. So I remember we'd all three of us get in his truck. And Papa Eden had one of them car phones when they came out, those big brick looking things. But it was before Google Maps or cell phones, so I'd have the key map out. That's just a book with a map of all the streets and a grid in a city so you could find your way around. And so I was the navigator, and it's good times, man. He didn't cheap out on paying me money to, he paid me good for being 16, and it was hard work. Growing up in their house was always fun because it was pretty big. And then at some point they had built on a den. Now I always remember it, so I don't know when they built it. Um, it would flood every now and then, every couple years or something. But it's good to have that extra space, that room. And out back, a long time ago, they had this junk pile, and they had built some kind. I called it the rat house, but importantly, it had a toilet. So that makes there was only one other toilet in the house. So you could go outside the house, out back, outside, and go to the rat house, which was not AC, no AC. So if you got to poop in the summer, you know you're gonna sweat out there in the rat house. They cleaned that up at some point. I don't know when. And they built another like a tool shed garage, an extra room back there, some storage. They used it as a workout room. Um, they planted some trees. There was a pear tree out front that never really grew pears. There was a lemon tree and an orange tree. And I will swear to you that at some point some of those mojos get mixed up and you would get a lemon orange every now and then. And I hate lemons, but I'm a big fan of people planting fruit trees and stuff like that. It's always my dream to have that. There was one place. It is, I don't know if this is a dream or not. It was in Austin. It must be in my early 20s or something like that. It was one of those places where you have mobile homes parked with hookups, and there was, I swear to you, it was like a Garden of Eden. Every imaginable fruit and nut tree was around. I don't know where I never found it again. I think it was an old girlfriend's mom's neighbor or something. It's just always my dream to have something like that. Um, and Papa, he would plant chili peppers and other things. Now, I also remember when I was a kid, these little Scrooge McDuck sometimes, or Grandma, I think it was Grandma. Grandma always had these rose bushes, and she couldn't see well, So tending a rose bush when you ain't got good sight, a recipe for getting pricked. So she would sometimes have us kids do it or pull weeds or something. I went back in there, man, they tried to give me a quarter. I, they were young, you go to the movies with a quarter, go out on a date or something. Shh, not anymore. Can't even buy gum for a quarter. Now, I never cheated grandma, and she learned this because money was not blind friendly. I think they've made some changes somewhat with some texturing, but so she would always ask me, is this a 20 or is this a 10? Now she keeps it in an order, so I'm sure she checked on me a few times to make sure I was not ripping her off, but I would never cheat her. Um, and then, take her to the store when I was old enough, and she just hold on to your arm and you walk her around. So I'm sure that that trust in me, that faith helped strengthen that relationship. Um, because she knew I wouldn't lie to her. Now, I remember also you you take her, she got a sense of humor, but you when she says something, you treat it as if she's serious. And then she her sense of humor is twisted. So if you tell her something to upset her and you do it in a sarcastic way, famous example being if you were to tell her, bite me, well, you best be ready because she's about to nip you. She liked to wrestle with all the grandkids. She got strong legs. Let me tell you that. She got strong legs. That's what you got to watch out for. Weak arms, weak upper body strength, but strong legs. Um, it was always enjoyable to go to their house. And because there were so many cousins, that was the one place where I got um, to experience some positive social interactions. And besides school, of course, but eventually at some point in school, especially in the cities, there's no way for you to know everybody. Quite frankly, you don't want to know everybody. Um, so it was always good. I never saw them. There are always um, barbecues. That was what Papa Eden was big on. He was big on family get-togethers and barbecues. And I don't remember many problems. If there were, I didn't see them. But it was always his thing. He needed no excuse. So someone's in town. We're gonna have a barbecue, and everyone would come. No, there'd be some beers for the adults. Now I find out later there's you know, Grandma likes to keep the gin and the vodka down there. Now she liked the cold beer every now and then, but some of them old ladies, man, don't. I know what's in their cup now. They fooled me back then, though. Um, she loved to play dominoes. Now, dominoes is a really good game for someone um, seeing impaired because you can feel the dominoes. Now, it makes it harder because you need to, prefer have someone call out what's on the ends to remind you, or they can feel it or whatever. But so it's a good game, and she loved dominoes. She loved some different types of card games and dominoes. The cards, you can get braille cards with little raised marks. So she loved that. And of course, I love games, so that was a perfect match, a way that we could spend a lot of time together. Um, because she's competitive in games like I am. So it was always fun. And we could always be honest about things to each other. I grew up much quicker than other kids in my awareness of adults being flawed. I never had the illusion or delusion that parents knew everything. No. Um, Almost immediately, I had the thought that they knew far less, which is a terrible thing. But grandma I could count on to be able to talk through things with. And if need be, she'd keep a secret. Because she knew the flaws of all her children and what was going on. She wasn't no dummy and she wouldn't care. She'll keep a secret, but if you're talking to her, she'll let her opinion out. And I appreciated that. Now, Papa Eden, I heard, this is before my time, so I'm just spreading gossip, but I heard Grandma was a very strict parent to her kids, to my aunts and uncles, and that Papa was the more lenient one, but Grandma would, egg him on to do something, discipline or something. Um, I I could see it, but I don't think I ever saw it. Anytime they tried to punish me, it was not that useful. It was more punishing to me for them to be disappointed in me or upset, and that was a lot more preventative for me than anything they could do. I'd already been through worse. Um, I did live with them for a time after I lived with my mom for a year or two or three. Yeah, after three, I think, after I was 15. Um, so they gave me shelter when neither of my parents were able to. So not only did they adopt my mom, but in essence, they were real parents to me as well. I am forever grateful. I'm going to skip ahead here. Grandma Eden died a while back in the same. My pairs of grandparents died in the same year. My grandma's died within the same year. So my little amount of time, my grandpa's died close together. Grandma Eden's was somewhat sudden from when we knew to when it happened. And when she was in the hospital when it was close. She had a lot of friends and family come in and say goodbyes and everything. And, it wasn't goodbye yet, but we had talked so much in our lives. There ain't too much we don't already know. But I was still struggling to be able, how do you comfort someone like that? Who knows they're going to die soon?
And there were other people in the room, so I leaned in close to her and I had told her that I am forever grateful for what she did. Papa had already been gone at this point, so I told her I was grateful for what she did for my mom and me, uh, and that my children would know where they came from, that they would know who the Edens are and what they did. Since she was crying, and she just whispered to me, she said, I know you already know, but you're my favorite. I said, I know. She ended up dying in her home not long after that, surrounded constantly by the people who loved her and who she loved. I will always be grateful. Excuse me. She was cremated. My mother keeps her ashes in Austin, last I heard. She had a loving relationship with Papa Eaton, as far as I'm aware. They would argue and piss each other off every now and then. That's normal. I never heard anything of infidelity. And Papa was a big baby. He just wanted to come home, be fed, loved, sit in his chair. He used to smoke cigars and out of this old timey pipe. He'd get mad, he'd try to grab you as a kid, but he's so big, he wasn't getting out of that chair to come after you. That was the secret. You just got to be at arm's length. Now, Grandma will get you. Now, Papa Eden would always say he was a good driver. And if you ever questioned him on this, he would say, "Oh, I was a police officer, blah, 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 blah." If you ever followed him or in the car with him, when the car slows down, he's on the phone with somebody driving. I remember one time we were at the Kroger's, the local grocery store they always shopped with. Uh, we went in, he was driving, he went in to park the car. He hit the gas instead of the brake, so he bumped into the car in front of us. So he reversed a little bit and then he parked and he got out and I was like, okay. Started to get some paper and a pen so we could leave a note. He was like, what are you doing? We're going to leave a note that we hit their car for the insurance. He said, you stupid boy. We didn't hit no car. I was just looking at the dent and looked up at him. And he's like, "Come on." Uh, I I got the feeling that it was more about his ego and getting older and making that just mistake and not admitting to it than any trouble he'd be in for a little old dent in someone's car. And that Kroger's was special too. Um, from the time I was little, they always went to the same one. And there were people working in that Kroger's that worked there my whole life. Even when I grew up old enough to work and I got a job there, people that had been working there. Even when I came back a decade later, some of the same people still working there till they closed it down. It's strange to drive by those places, drive by the barber shop Papa Eden always went to. Apparently, it was a thing back when I was a kid just to have um, nudie magazines laying out at barber shops. Different culture, man. I can drive by streets that I was up on the roof on some of the houses. Papa Eden, most of his business by that time were customers he had already seen. They were lifetime type things. And it's weird. It feels like a different life because they're gone. Different people live there. Nobody remembers. Life moves on. After Grandma died, my aunts and uncles lost their mind. Everyone always thinks when someone dies there's some gold buried in the yard. They must have had more. I knew they didn't because Grandma trusted me and I've seen all her bills before, her bank accounts. She had jewelry because Papa Eden, that's one thing he liked to give jewelry as presents. You think going to the store with a woman is bad or to the mall? Do not go anywhere with this man. He will go to the jewelry counter. If it wasn't for someone else, he was looking at watches for him. Do not go anywhere with him. But that's how he expressed his love. And that influences me a lot. I don't always have the means to do things like that, but I want to, I have the urge to. Give away shiny things to the people you love. It is what inspired me to collect treasure all my life, in case I ever had a kid. Spoilers, my mom stole my treasure, my daughter's treasure. We'll get to that soon enough when we talk about her. Papa Eden also worked for Exxon for a long time, retired. His retirement watch has a little tiger on it. That was in the treasure. I wore watches when I was younger to copy him. Now you don't need no watch. Everyone got a cell phone or whatever. And sometimes I got hairy arms. You get one in there, roll it wrong or something, and pinches the hair off. They're more a status symbol now. He always drove a Cadillac, and man, if you've never driven one, they are smooth. They were picky about who drove it. I was a better driver than all of them, but they were picky. Papa Eden would call me Aroni. I don't do them justice. I think people have a difficult time with change. It's difficult for them, so in turn they believe it's difficult or impossible for other people. But Grandma saw through me at least, and probably because she listened enough and believed when I was talking what I was doing and going through. So while other people saw a kid consumed by anger and rebellion, Grandma Eden knew enough to see or hear or watch me move away from that. Other people didn't. So they get stuck believing something that was no longer true. I think this is a common fault for a vast majority of people. They really struggle with change. And one of the things that's helped me is that you don't treat people like the way you see them at their worst. You encourage them by treating them at their best or what you imagine to be their best or better. And this gives people the chance to grow, to be believed in, and to be recognized when they do make that effort. And Grandma Eden really believed in me, and she lived long enough to see me grow into some of my goals. So I appreciate that. I think that's enough for today. I keep teetering on the edge of crying, and so I'm not able to think very well or remember memories or stories. So we'll stop there, and I'm gonna get some more tea and finish writing a letter today, and maybe watch some TV or play a game. I miss you. It's almost Wednesday again. I'll send your mother another Discord code. There was an answer this week. I sent two, I believe, and she replied to one. She did her usual sarcastic thing, wanting me to call her phone, but um, I don't have a phone, and when I get one, she's not gonna have the number. Um, so I'm sorry that you have to go through this, but I'll send her another code, and hopefully she lets you get on Discord and talk to me. If you get on and I'm not on, just leave a message. I made a clean Discord for us. Rob and Britt have dirtied it up with some messages or something, but I'll get the message if you type in there and come as soon as I can. I love you. Bye.